The sound of her hand hitting my face echoed through the entire restaurant. Every fork stopped moving. Every conversation died. 50 people turned to stare at me, a 32-year-old woman in a second-hand blazer, standing in the middle of Chicago's most expensive steakhouse, with a red handprint blooming across her cheek. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, holding a small envelope that contained the only proof I had that my entire life had been stolen from me. And then, from the corner booth, the one reserved for someone I didn't even recognize, a man slowly rose to his feet. Nobody in that room moved. Because everyone knew who he was. And nobody, not even the woman who had just slapped me, had any idea what was about to happen next. My name is Sarah Calloway. And 3 months ago, I was nobody. I grew up in a small apartment in Bridgeport, the kind of neighborhood where dreams came in and quietly died before they ever got a chance to breathe. My mother worked double shifts at a laundromat. My father left when I was 6. I raised myself on library books and a stubborn belief that if I worked hard enough, things would eventually get better. And for a while, they did. By 28, I had built something real. A small interior design business, nothing fancy, just me, a laptop, and a portfolio I had pieced together from years of late nights and weekend jobs. I had 3 steady clients, a tiny office I shared with a friend, and enough money saved to finally feel like I wasn't one bad day away from disaster. Then I met Diana Holt. She walked into my office on a Tuesday afternoon in October, wearing a coat that probably cost more than my car. She was polished, confident, and charming in the way that only truly dangerous people can be. She said she had been referred by a mutual contact. She said she loved my work. She said she wanted to invest in my business, turn it into something big, something real. I should have asked more questions. I should have verified everything. But I was tired of being small, and Diana made big sound so easy. Within 6 months, she had full access to my business accounts, my client list, my design templates, my vendor contracts, everything. She said it was necessary for the partnership. She said we were building something together. What she was actually doing was building something for herself. One morning I woke up to find every account emptied, every client contacted directly by a new company, a company with my designs, my concepts, my years of work, with Diana Holt listed as the sole founder. She had taken everything. And she had done it so cleanly, so carefully, that when I went to the police, they told me it was a civil matter. When I went to a lawyer, I was told I needed money I didn't have. When I called my clients, most of them didn't even return my calls. I lost my office. I lost my apartment 2 months later. I was sleeping on my cousin's couch, eating canned soup, and spending every free hour I had gathering whatever scraps of evidence I could find, emails, contracts, screenshots, timestamps, anything that could prove what Diana had done to me. That evidence was sitting inside the envelope I was holding when she slapped me. I hadn't planned to confront her in public. That wasn't the idea at all. I had found out through a former vendor that Diana was attending a private business dinner at Hargrove's, the kind of restaurant where a glass of water costs $12 and the clientele included people whose names you read in Forbes. I knew I couldn't get a meeting with her. She had blocked me on every platform and her assistant hung up every time I called. So I did something bold. Something maybe a little reckless. I called the restaurant, told them I was a journalist doing a piece on Chicago's rising entrepreneurs, and asked if I could stop by briefly to confirm some details with Ms. Holt. They gave me a 5-minute window before the dinner began. I dressed in the best thing I owned, a blazer I had bought 3 years ago for a client presentation. I walked in with my envelope and my pounding heart and I found her standing near the bar, laughing with 2 men in expensive suits. She saw me and the laughter stopped. Sarah. Her voice was perfectly calm. The kind of calm that comes from never having faced real consequences. You need to leave. I just want 5 minutes, I said. I have documents. I want to talk about what you did. What I did? She tilted her head slightly, like I had said something amusing. I saved a failing business from a woman who had no idea how to run it. Everything I built legally. You stole my work, Diana. You stole my clients, my designs, my... That's when it happened. Her hand moved so fast I didn't even process it until the pain hit. A sharp, flat crack. My head turned sideways from the force of it. The entire restaurant went silent like someone had cut the audio. I steadied myself. My face was burning. My eyes were stinging. But I refused to fall apart in front of her. You should be grateful, she said quietly, adjusting her bracelet like she hadn't just assaulted me in a room full of witnesses. I could have destroyed you completely. And then a voice came from across the room. Actually, it said. I think you already tried. Everyone turned. The man who had spoken was standing at the corner booth. He was perhaps 60, silver-haired, with the kind of quiet authority that doesn't need a loud voice to fill a room. He was wearing a simple dark suit, no tie. He held a glass of water loosely in one hand. His name was Robert Hargrove. Not the restaurant. The man. The actual Robert Hargrove, founder of Hargrove Capital, one of the most powerful private equity firms in the Midwest, and a name that appeared on the donor walls of half the institutions in Chicago. He was famously private, famously difficult to reach, and reportedly worth somewhere north of $4 billion. I had no idea he was there. Based on the color draining from Diana's face, she hadn't known either. "Mr. Hargrove," Diana said, recovering quickly, her voice smooth as glass. "I apologize for the disruption. This woman is a former associate who has been harassing." "I heard what she said," he replied. He hadn't raised his voice once. "And I heard what you said." He looked at me with calm, steady eyes. "Are you all right?" I blinked. Yes. I'm okay. "What's your name?" "Sarah. Sarah Calloway." He nodded slowly. Then he looked at Diana. "Calloway Interiors. The firm whose entire concept portfolio appeared in your rebranded company's launch materials 18 months ago." He paused. "I remember because my team flagged it during a due diligence review. We were considering investing in your company, Ms. Holt. We chose not to." The silence in the room was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Diana's mouth opened. Then closed. "Sit down, Ms. Holt," Robert Hargrove said. She sat down. He walked toward me slowly, unhurried, the way a man walks when he knows the entire room is watching and doesn't care at all. He stopped a few feet away and held out his hand. "May I?" he said, nodding at the envelope. I don't know why I trusted him. Maybe because he was the first person in months who had looked at me like I was worth listening to. I handed it to him. He opened it, looked through the documents quietly for about 30 seconds, then handed them back to me. He turned to the restaurant manager, who had appeared at the edge of the room looking deeply uncomfortable. "Call my attorney," he said simply. "And get this young woman a table." I sat in a booth by the window and drank the best cup of coffee I had ever had in my life while the world around me quietly rearranged itself. Robert Hargrove's attorney arrived within 20 minutes, a sharp-eyed woman named Claire who sat across from me, asked precise questions, and took photographs of every document in my envelope. She didn't make promises, but the way she handled those papers told me she knew exactly what they meant. Diana had left the restaurant. I wasn't sure when. I hadn't seen her go. At some point, Robert Hargrove sat down across from me. He ordered nothing. He just folded his hands on the table and looked at me with an expression that was hard to read, not pity, not sympathy exactly, but something more like recognition. "How long has it been?" he asked. "Since she took everything?" "About 8 months. And you've been gathering evidence this whole time?" "Every day," I said. I didn't know what else to do. Nobody would help me. He was quiet for a moment. "My mother ran a small alterations shop," he said finally. "When I was 12, her business partner forged her signature on a document and dissolved the partnership." "Took the shop?" "The equipment. The client book." He paused. "My mother never recovered from it. Not financially. Not really in any other way either." I didn't say anything. I just listened. "I've spent a long time thinking about what would have happened if someone had simply helped her," he said. "If one person in that room had stood up." He looked at me steadily. "I don't make a habit of intervening in strangers' problems, Ms. Calloway. But I was in that room. And I heard everything. What happened over the next 6 weeks felt less like real life and more like something I would have dismissed as too convenient if I had read it in a novel." Claire filed a civil suit on my behalf, pro bono, covered by a foundation Robert Hargrove had quietly funded for exactly this kind of case. The evidence I had gathered turned out to be far more solid than I had known. 2 of Diana's former employees, apparently aware that legal trouble was coming, came forward with internal communications that made my documentation even stronger. Diana's lawyers tried 3 different strategies to make the case go away. None of them worked. For months after that dinner at Hargrove's, a settlement was reached. I won't share the exact number, but I will tell you this: it was enough to restart everything. Enough to pay off the debts that had piled up during those 8 months of nothing. Enough to open a real office, hire 2 people, and rebuild the client relationships that had gone cold. But that wasn't the twist that broke me open completely. That came 2 days before the settlement was finalized, when Claire called me with something unexpected in her voice. "We found something during discovery," she said. "Something that wasn't in your original documents." It turned out that Diana hadn't acted alone. The mutual contact who had originally referred her to me, the person whose name had made me trust her, was someone I had known for years. A woman named Patrice, who I had considered a genuine friend. Someone I had helped when she was starting her own career. Someone I had trusted completely. Patrice had sent Diana to me deliberately. She had been offered a cut of whatever Diana could extract. She had provided insider information about my business, my finances, my vulnerabilities. She had been part of it from the very beginning. I sat with that information for a long time. I'm not going to pretend it didn't hurt worse than the slap. It did. Betrayal by an enemy is something you can absorb. Betrayal by someone you loved is a different kind of wound entirely. But I made a decision. I didn't include Patrice in the civil action. I had enough without it, and honestly, I didn't want to spend one more day of my life in a courtroom. What I did instead was write her a letter. 1 page. I told her I knew. I told her what it had cost me. I told her I forgave her, not for her sake, but because I refused to carry that weight into the life I was rebuilding. I never heard back from her. Maybe someday I will. Maybe not. Either way, I've made my peace with it. Robert Hargrove and I have had dinner exactly 3 times since that night. Not as anything other than what we are, 2 people who ended up in the same room at the right moment and recognized something in each other. He doesn't invest in my company. He made that clear early on, and I was grateful for it. I didn't want to owe my success to anyone's charity. What he did give me was something more valuable. He introduced me to 5 people in his network, architects, developers, hospitality executives, and told them simply that I was talented and that they should take a meeting. What they decided after that meeting was up to me. 3 of those 5 meetings turned into contracts. Callaway Interiors, the real one, the one with my name on the door, reopened 14 months after Diana Holt had gutted it. We had 7 clients in our first month. 12 by the end of the quarter. I hired 4 people. 2 of them were young women fresh out of design school who reminded me so much of myself at that age that it almost hurt to look at them, that particular combination of hunger and uncertainty that you only carry when you're trying to build something from nothing and you're not sure yet if you have what it takes. I tell them every single time I get the chance, document everything. Trust slowly. And if someone ever tries to make you feel like your work isn't worth protecting, that person is showing you exactly who they are. I went back to Hargrove's restaurant exactly 1 year after that night. I sat at a table by the window, ordered the coffee, and looked around the room at all the people having their quiet, expensive dinners, deals being made, stories being written, lives intersecting in ways none of them could fully see. I thought about the woman I had been when I walked in there a year ago. Terrified. Broke. Holding an envelope full of hope that I wasn't even sure meant anything. I thought about how close I came to not walking in at all. I had sat in my car for 22 minutes before I found the nerve to go inside. 22 minutes of talking myself out of it, telling myself it was stupid, telling myself nothing was going to change. But something did. Not because a billionaire saved me. That's not the story. Robert Hargrove gave me a moment, one moment where someone with power chose to use it on behalf of someone without any. That moment mattered enormously, and I will never pretend otherwise. But every day before that moment, and every day after it, was me. Getting up. Gathering evidence. Refusing to accept that what had been done to me was simply something I had to absorb and move on from. Fighting for myself when everyone around me suggested, gently, kindly, but clearly, that I should probably just let it go. Don't let it go. Whatever was taken from you, your work, your name, your confidence, your trust, you are allowed to fight for it. You are allowed to walk into rooms where you feel like you don't belong and demand to be heard. You are allowed to hold your evidence in both hands and refuse to leave until someone listens. The slap was meant to silence me. To humiliate me in front of witnesses and make me small enough to walk away quietly. Instead, it woke up a room. And sometimes, that's all it takes, one moment loud enough to make the right person look up. The rest is the life you build after that.